Hi there! If you've clicked on this video, then that means you must be interested in randomizing Digimon World on PlayStation 1. It's actually incredibly straightforward, and the tools that are available make things insanely easy. But because I'm currently live streaming a Digimon Randomizer on Twitch, I thought it was appropriate that I do something for YouTube to help you guys get into randomizing Digimon World for yourselves. So, before we get started, I need you to get a hold of a couple of things. Number one, you're going to need a copy of EPSXE or any version of the PlayStation 1 emulator of your choosing. Number two, you will need a US ROM of Digimon World. This only works on the US ROM at the time of making this video. I don't know if the developers of the Randomizer intend for it to also be used for the European version, but at the moment it only works for the American version, so make sure you have the US version of Digimon World in ROM form. And effectively, there you go. As long as you have those two things ready to go so you can test the ROM to make sure it's all working, and that you have obviously the ROM on hand so you can get to randomizing, then we're all good to go. For the sake of this video, I will not be giving out links to where you can find the ROM. So please, if you are looking to find a ROM for yourself, either dump your own copy of Digimon World or find a ROM in your own time, as I will not be advertising any way of getting one on my channel. Now you have all those parts available to you, let's head over to the websites and show you where you can get the randomizer needed to make the magic work. So the first thing I need you to do is open up your browser of choice. My browser of choice is Brave, but you can have anything. From here, you want to go to your taskbar or your search bar, whatever you want to call it, and you want to type in, simply put, Digimon World Randomizer. Once you type that in, it should come up with the link at the top here for github.com, being Meek Rhino Digimon World Randomizer on GitHub. Click this link and it will take you to the GitHub page of the randomizer itself. Once you're here, you'll see a bunch of information concerning the randomizer, how to do it, and how to set it all up, which I'll be going through in video form for you guys as well. Now, a lot of people struggle with GitHub, and I completely understand, because you see a lot of files in your face, and sometimes it's not very clear where you need to go and how you download your files. I'm going to specifically show you right here. So what you want to do is, you want to go to the area on this page under Releases, and you want to click on the latest release. In this case, it's release version 1.1.2. Let's give it a click. Once you click on this, it actually gives you the release file, gives you some information on the release file, and even shows you some bug fixes as well. What you then need to do is, you need to go down here and you see the Digimon World Randomize zip. Click on the zip file, and then it will come up with a box to allow you to download anything and everything that you need. In this case, download it to anywhere on your PC that you will find it the best to be. I've already got it downloaded, so I'm going to show you the next steps from there. Now that you have everything downloaded, I want you to open up the folder where you have the Digimon Randomizer RAR file. Once you're over there, you're going to find your RAR or zip file, like I have over here, and you're going to right click and unzip it. Now, in order to unzip it, you will need something like WinRAR, or what I personally recommend is 7-zip. If you have 7-zip, you'll be able to go under 7-zip in your bar over here, go over to extract files or extract here, and it will extract all the files for you. I've already done this. As you can see in my top left hand corner, I have my Digimon Randomize folder. Let's give that an open. When you open this up, you will then have the GUI folder, and inside the GUI folder, this is where all the magic happens. This is where you will have your randomizer. So let's open it up and actually have a look at the randomizer itself. And here we are. It's very straightforward, and straightforward looking from here on. So now you have your Digimon World Randomizer. How do you get your ROM inside of it? Let's go from here. So what we need to do is, first we need to find the location of our ROMs. So click Browse and go to the location of where you have saved your Digimon US ROM. In my case, I've saved it on my D drive, with my EPSXE install under a folder I've called Games and Digimon World USA, because remember, we have to use the USA version of Digimon World. What you then want to do is, you want to click your Digimon World USA.bin file. Once you click here, click Open, and it will attach the bin file into the randomizer. Output is the destination file name for your randomizer. So for the sake of this test, we're going to call this digirando_test. But you can literally call this anything and everything you potentially want, and this is especially handy if you're doing, let's say, a race with a couple of your mates, because then you can set up a go-to file name which can then be attached to how you're going to race the game. Now from here, you then have logging. This is basically an idea of how far you're going to go with this randomization. You can either do race, which will give you settings for race-specific setups, casual if you're only doing this as a casual run, or full if you do plan to do a full randomizer with everything expected of it. For the sake of this, we're going to stick to casual because we're all filthy casuals, at least on the inside. Now let's go through every box and detail for you guys what every box means and what it will do to the game. First off is Digimon data. Now this is the big thing to keep in mind as well. If you hover over the enabled path, you'll actually see little descriptions of what things will do. So we'll go through these as we go along. So let's activate Digimon data. Underneath that we have item drops. This will randomize what items Digimon drop upon defeat. So simply, instead of a Digimon dropping, let's say, a Digimushroom, they may potentially now drop a giant meat, or a fish, or a chip instead. This fully randomizes their drop tables. Then we have drop rate. This randomizes the drop rate of certain items. So, if you wanted to make it so that a Dokunamon can potentially drop a giant meat, you can then randomize the chance of him dropping giant meat. So it could already be set at about 25-30%. The randomizer could randomize it to 90%. It could randomize it to 5%. But that's completely up to you if you want to bring that setting in. Match value drops. Now this is where things get interesting in the randomizer. In some of the settings in the randomizer, you'll be able to change the value drops. What does this mean? Well, value is determined by this slider right here. If you keep the slider at 1000, then you're going to get randomized items that are pretty similar to the items that those Digimon would be dropping naturally. So, instead of a Digimushroom, it'll probably be your standard size meat instead of giant meat. However, if we ramped that all the way up to 10,000, all of a sudden, these random drops could be godlike items. And I'm talking about training food, food that will fully restore HP MP, maybe even restore tiredness. I'm talking about chips that will heavily boost your stats, and in crazy things like that. What I recommend is, if you want to mix things up and make things a little bit more unique for yourself, if you want to mess about with match value drops, I suggest setting it in the midway point at about 5,000. That way you have a potential chance of getting the low end items and a potential chance of getting the high range items and quite a few mid range items. Next, let's cover Digivolutions. So under the Digivolutions table, we can click enabled. Now it does give you a rundown here, so let's give you a read, shall we? Enable Digivolution Tree Randomization. Randomizes which Digimon each Digimon can randomize into. Each fresh will get 1 target, each in training will get 2 targets, each rookie gets 4 to 6 targets, and each champion gets 1 to 2 targets. Unless Obtain All is set, not all playable Digimon are guaranteed to be obtainable through natural Digivolution. So there you go. It doesn't necessarily change or randomize how many Digivolves certain levels of Digimon can get into. It just randomizes the Digimon it can go into. We can also change a few other things. We can change the requirements. These requirements, unless you look at wiki pages or GameFAQs pages, are invisible stats. And you're just going to have to grind up hoping that you somehow hit the requirements. Now, in my randomized run, I do have requirements turned on because I just found it to be a little bit more unique. And you never know, we might end up getting a Sukamon that is randomized into a Greymon. Do this at your own risk. Requirements in Digimon World are crazy enough as it is. This is more so a setting if you've played Digimon World enough times where you know the requirements of certain Digivolutions off by heart, and now that you've mixed things up, this completely changes your mindset going into the game. I personally recommend it. And then we have something awesome. Special Digivolutions. Now, Special Digivolutions also includes Digivolves that you can't normally get unless you go through certain requirements that are now added onto the tree. So for some of the examples that it gives here are the Death Digivolutions such as Bakumon and Devimon, Metal Mamemon's Upgrade Digivolutions, and the Toy Town Monzimon suit. Now you can get them naturally in the game via the randomization. Perfect. I highly suggest keeping this on. And lastly, Obtain All, which makes it so that you can obtain all the Digimon that are available in Digimon World that you can Digivolve into just by going through these trees. I personally recommend keeping this on to make sure you have access to everything, but everything's randomized, so you don't know what you're going to get next. Just makes the game a little bit more, if not even more, awesome. The fact that you have everything at your disposal. Next we have technique data. Now we're getting into the tough parts because techniques are obviously your damaging and buffing attacks. So upon enabling this, we can see a few things. First, we have an option here. We can either randomize them completely or shuffle. What this means is, if you click shuffle, it actually shuffles the power output and mana values of the attacks between all the attacks. So Prominence Beam stats can now be on Spitfire stats and vice versa. However, if you click random completely, that means everything from damage output to mana usage are completely randomized for every single move. So you can have a situation like what's happening in my run, where Prominence Beam, one of the best damaging attacks, at least in the early mid-range area of the game, is now a pathetic attack. And some of the strongest attacks are actually some of the basic attacks you get in the game that also include status ailments. By the way, you can include status ailments and randomize which moves cause statuses and what statuses they are. This is where things go mad, like I said earlier. I would recommend leaving this until you've at least beat the game once, and then maybe give this a go with, let's say, random power and MP cost, and then maybe going from there. In my run, I have random power, random MP cost, random status effect chance, and random type effectiveness as well. Then we move on from the Digimon tab to the Items tab. And under the Items tab, we have Map Item Spawns. Map Item Spawns are of course the random items that could potentially pop up as you explore in the world. The earliest instance of this is in Native Forest, when you can find Digimushrooms. Now you can randomize those into anything you can imagine. So in this case, if we enable it, we can only randomize food items if we want to, so Digimushrooms would be the only things affected, but things that are like chips or discs, for example, will not be randomized. They will always be those sets of items. I don't really recommend that. I think it's a lot more fun if you let everything get randomized, not just food items only, but that's up to you. And then we have another value option again. As you can see here, it goes from 0 to 10,000. I normally recommend putting it to 5,000 again, so you get that mid-range and you get quite a lot to play around with. I also recommend putting on match rare spawns, because matching rare spawns means that these rare spawns that are normally very good items, you don't really want them to get randomized into items that are pretty bad, unless you're a glutton for punishment and you like that sort of thing, which yes, you can go for. But what I recommend is switching on match rare spawns, so now you may still get your rare spawn, but your rare spawn would now be changed to something just as rare, just mixing it up a little bit. Next we have chest contents. Very simple, it changes the contents of what's in the box. But as you can see, you can include Digivolution items. One of the things that I really enjoy from Digimon World 1 on PS1 is the fact that you can have items that help you digivolve into specific Digimon. These really come into play when you're digivolving a rookie into a champion, or a champion into an ultimate level digi. I've got quite a few of these in the game at the moment on my live streamed run. I also highly recommend the last box, Tokamon items. This randomizes the items that Tokamon gives you at the very start of the game. I highly recommend this because some of the items Tokamon can give you can be utterly outrageous, including early rain plant, early chips, early sirloins, early anything. And you can also change this to consumable only, so that Tokamon will only ever give you consumable items, and that's it. Next we have progression, and under the progression tab we have randomize your starter. Randomizing your starter, pretty self-explanatory. You're randomizing your starting Digimon, which is any of the rookie Digimon from Digimon World 1. Now, you have quite a few nice options here. You can still use weakest tech, which if this is combined with randomizing your tech list, this will actually give your Digimon the weakest tech that you have randomized, as long as the Digimon can use it. If the Digimon can't use it, it will go to the next one. And you can also set things to random if you want to, or if you want to start the game with a specific Digimon in mind, like let's say you're doing a very specific Digimon style run, you can actually select what Digimon you want to start with, and you're not actually restricted to just the rookie Digimon. If you want to, you can start off with babies and in training, or if you really want to, you can start off with champion Digimon like Meramon, or go straight into ultimate level Digimon like Metal Greymon. It's that mad. So play with this at your own will. I personally put this on just random, because if you end up starting the game with a Metal Mamemon, that's freaking amazing. If you end up starting the game with a Kuramon, that's still really amazing. Play with it on random, see how you feel, and if you're doing specific race runs where you have to start with, let's say, an Agumon or a Gabumon or a Metal Mamemon or whatever, you can set this up so that everyone in the race starts off on the exact same foot. So you can randomize it completely, and as long as you've clicked randomize completely and click all these boxes, that means you can literally start off with anything from a fresh Digimon, which we're used to calling it baby Digimon, or at least I'm used to calling them baby Digimon, all the way up to ultimate level Digimon. In Digimon World 1, Mega Digivolutions weren't brought in yet, so they only have up to ultimate level. But don't worry, ultimate level Digimons are still really freaking awesome. Next we have some very dangerous territory. I'm gonna go with the easiest one first. Technique gifts. So later on in the game, you'll be able to get a Digimon into your city that'll be able to give you technique gifts and teach you new techniques. And there are other Digimon scattered around the world that will teach you techniques as long as you hit certain requirements. If you randomize this, then the techniques they're going to give you are completely randomized in comparison to the base game. If you're used to what techniques they give you in the base game, you might want to click this option if you want to mix things up a little bit. But if you're brand new and you want to randomize some things anyway, just to test the waters a little bit, I probably wouldn't recommend turning this on. It might be a little bit too crazy for you. The other one that you want to be very, very careful about is recruitment. Randomizing recruitment in Digimon World has the potential to give you a bricked seed. Now, what do I mean by this? You're still going to be recruiting Digimon in the regular way. So when you start Digimon World 1, the very first Digimon you can recruit to the city is an Agumon who you have to fight. You'll still be fighting Agumon, and when you beat Agumon, Agumon will still come to the city. But now it's randomized. You may not have Agumon set up the bank as your first Digimon. You may instead have Meramon setting up the restaurant, or Birdramon setting up fast travel, or Centauramon setting up the clinic, or many of the other Digimon that could show up in File City, including the ones that do nothing. The trick with this potentially giving you a bricked seed is that if you do not get specific Digimon into your city, there will be a part of the game where you genuinely will not be able to complete the game. Because there are some Digimon you will need to have in File City in order to then be able to find them out in the world. So you gotta be very careful with this. Only select this option if I say you're doing like either a YouTube series or a live stream run where you're going to be replacing seeds as many times as you possibly can. Because if you don't want to keep resetting seeds all the time, do not select this option, and then you'll have a single playthrough where any Digimon you get will be the Digimon you get. Only select this if you're a true mad lad. And then we have the miscellaneous patches. It's worth going through this because there are quite a lot of quality of life improvements you can get through this randomizer. And in my personal opinion, even if you're not planning on randomizing the game your first time round, I may suggest you put your ROM through the randomizer anyway, just to get these patches installed. Because some of these patches really do help with your gameplay of Digimon World 1. The Gyromon glitch. Now, for anyone that has not seen the Gyromon glitch, there is a potential crash in the game involving Gyromon, and this basically fixes it. Changing the WHOA text. So anytime you pick up an item in the game, the WHOA text comes up whenever you pick something up. This is a funny one, and I suggest putting it on because it changes whoa to oh shit. And it can make for some hilarious moments if you're doing this for YouTube or streaming. Then we have Gabumon mode, and let's just say this is hilarious. As it says here, this makes Gabumon as powerful as he was truly meant to be, not for the faint of heart. Good luck. That's all I'm gonna say on it, and if you pick Gabumon mode, all speed to you, and at the same time, let me know if you're doing a Gabumon mode run, because I'll totally watch it. Then we have display settings. It's very useful if you want to just display information to make sure that the randomizer's working. I recommend doing this if you're planning races with other people, just to make sure you are all running the same seed and the seed's working across the board. Skip intro. Very, very good. It just basically skips the intro of the beginning of the game, chucks you straight in there, and away you go. Unlock areas. This removes the type requirements for certain areas in order to open things up. So, for example, needing vaccine data virus or Monzemon in order to enter certain areas like Greylord's Mansion, Ice Sanctuary, and Toy Town. Fair bonus try. I cannot recommend enough how important this is. Bonus try, if you've ever tried it in the original Digimon World, is a pain in the ass to try. Basically, bonus try is a slot machine, and if you successfully win at the slot machine, you get more stats when you train your Digimon than what you would normally do if you just select normal training. It's something that I tend to use on stream a lot now, especially since the stat boost you can get can be astronomical. So yes, click on this. It does not make it so the bonus try is easy, however. You will still need to learn the technique of bonus try, which, if you guys are interested in, I'm more than happy to do a tutorial video of in the future if you want to try your luck at Digimon Bonus Try. Recruit spawn rate. Now this also comes with a little slider down here as well. Recruit spawn rate is incredibly straightforward. There are certain Digimon that will only spawn into the world on a random chance. Most of those chances being quite low in consideration of Digimon like Piximon and Ninjamon, for example. So if you want to make it so that they just pop up more often or more consistently, I highly recommend clicking this option, and it's a setting from 1 to 100. I suggest setting this at 50 just so they have a higher than normal chance, and it's still a 50-50 chance of them showing up. If you can't be asked and you want a guaranteed chance that they're going to show up, set it to 100. But that does mean that Ninjamon now has a 100% chance of showing up, and if you're not ready for Ninjamon, he will kick your ass, so be careful. Next we have Fix Soft Locks, which just fixes some base movement soft locking, just to make sure that you can move around a lot easier. Fix Brains Learning does exactly what it says here. It fixes a bug within the game that now allows you to learn a technique and learn a way of how to tame and control your Digimon at the exact same time. Because in base game, you either had one or the other. You didn't get both at once. Now you can. DV chip descriptions does exactly what it does. It fixes the descriptions of DV chips to tell you exactly what they actually do, something which I'm very happy with, because finding out what they actually do requires you to go into a wiki most of the time. So now we can actually play the game! And last but not least, Happy Mushroom Vending. As it says here, it replaces meat trading with a Happy Mushroom trade of a vending machine at Dragonite Lake's top area. Use this if you want happy mushrooms instead of meat. I personally prefer having meat as a meat option in case, but if you do want happy mushrooms, there's your option there to mix it all up. So for the sake of this, I haven't really added on anything because I've already randomized my game, but simply go through this, select the options that you want to do, change the sliders to whatever you want to change the sliders to, for example, and when you're ready, consider saving your settings if you want to go back to this seed in the future. But again, if you want to randomize things differently every single time, don't worry about it. You can just do whatever the heck you want. But when everything's done, you want to click Randomize. This will randomize your game, give you an idea as to where you want to save it, and then once you save your randomized version of Digimon World, it's time to test it. The first thing you need to do is load up your PlayStation 1 emulator. In my case, I'm using EPSXE. Double click on EPSXE if you have a shortcut, or load it from the directory where you have EPSXE installed at, and away we go. Go to File, Run ISO, and find where you have saved your Digimon World randomizer. In my case, I've saved it in the exact same file location as the original Digimon World ROM, just so they're in the same place and makes it useful for myself to know where everything's kept. In my case, I've named my actual one DigiRando Livestream, because of course, I'm live streaming my run. So what you want to do is, you want to click on it, click Open, and that will open up the emulator, and we're good to go. So now, if everything's worked appropriately, your game would have loaded, and you're now at the title screen of Digimon World 1 on your emulator. Hit the start button, or whatever you're using. I'm using my controller in order to play the game, and away we go. Now, I could click on continue game and simply load up my live stream game, but for the simple fact of I'm walking this through with you guys, we want to select new game. You can continue game if you want, if you already have a save file, but bear in mind that could cause some problems, so you want to start a new game. Once you hit new game, hit your memory card of choice, and you're ready to go. I've already got my top one there for the live streaming with TheXploder and Digimon. So we're going to go with file 2, and we're going to record a brand new game. Wait for the game to load, and then you have the start of the game running as normal with Digimon coming out, basically wanting to know more about you, and if you've done everything else. Of course, this is the major option that a lot of people see in Digimon World 1. Day normally gives you an Agumon, night normally gives you a Gabumon. We're going to try clicking night and see what we end up going with. Then we're going to go with name, so for the sake of a name for the sake of we're testing things, we're just going to call the name Test. Nice and easy. And then the Digimon name. So for the sake of a Digimon name, we're just going to call this, I'm just going to call it this because we're testing and I'm used to testing video games anyway. So I'm going to call my Digimon Beta because we're beta testers. Get it? Now that's all the questions Digimon has for set you up for the game, and away you go. And once you wake up in File City, you'll see if your game has randomized. Now this is bearing in mind, even if you randomize the game and you randomize your starter, you may still start with Agumon and Gabumon, so don't be threatened if this is the case. In our case, we have been randomized a Penguinmon. Awesome, right? So what we're going to do is, I'm going to skip past this opening area, and we're going to go straight into Digimon's house where he's going to give you a lowdown of what's happening in File City and the Digimon World. After this has happened, we could do a few tests to see if everything's working out as intended. As you can see, we've skipped a bunch of the intro stuff, so a bunch of the introductory stuff of the Digimon World has been completely skipped and we can jump straight into the game. So to test whether things have worked, let's have a look at Penguinmon. Penguinmon stats, pretty much accurate to where a rookie would be. But now, let's look at techs. We start with Winter Blast. Winter Blast is a wide range attack with a power of 48 and a mana pool of 42. This is completely randomized, and this proves that it is, because you should not have access to Winter Blast this early on. But of course, you would only know this if you have played Digimon World before. So if you haven't played Digimon World before, what I would recommend doing is, if you've randomized things, check the Digimon's techs, find the tech that the Digimon has, go onto Google and load up a list of the Digimon World 1 techs, and double check next to that randomizer what the power and MP are of that tech, even the spec, which spec is statuses. If it matches, then your game may not have randomized properly, so you may have to go through the processes again. If it has changed, congratulations, the game has been randomized. But there is one other thing you can do if you want to test the game and you're not too convinced. Go back into Digimon's house. Once you're back in the Digimon's house, we want to talk to Tokamon. Now this only works if you have randomized Tokamon starting items. In my case on this seed, I have. So if we talk to Tokamon, he says we can have this and we get lots of items. Again, you can have a look on Google as to what your starting items from Tokamon are supposed to be to clarify whether this has randomized successfully or not. For our sakes, we'll check it. And we have been randomized some crazy stuff. We have 3 Omni discs which boost all skills in battle, 3 high speed discs that boost speed in battle, 3 Digi Catfish which make your Digimon very full and are very, very good food items, a medicine which cures wounds and sickness, 2 porta potties that allow you to basically make sure your Digimon goes to the toilet if you're very far away from the toilet, and 2 super carrots for boost training. In no instance would you normally get these items in a regular run of Digimon World. So if you see any of these items at all, congratulations, you have also successfully randomized the game and you can go out into the digital world and start playing. And that, ladies and gentlemen, is as simple as that. Very straightforward, very in-depth. Sorry if this video is a little bit longer, but I did want to go into detail with every aspect of the randomizer so you know what everything does. With all that said, go out there, enjoy Digimon World, and have some fun. Now let me know in the comment section below as well if you are struggling with the randomizer or if you have any questions concerning the randomizer, and I will answer things to the best of my abilities. And we can go forward from there. I want to encourage more people to play Digimon World 1, and especially with just the patches that this randomizer gives, it gives you a better entry-level experience to this old-school game that I love so much. And if you've watched this all the way through and you're interested in my live-streamed run of the game, I will be uploading edits of the run here on YouTube, but you can check the run live as it happens over on twitch.tv every Tuesday, Thursday and Friday, where we keep kicking some digital ass. On top of that, whilst you're down in the description below looking at my Twitch channel, you might as well look at the other social media bits that are down there if you're interested in following me elsewhere, so that you can keep in contact with me, especially the Discord server where I am the most active. But with all that said, I hope you have everything you need to be able to randomize and play Digimon World 1 like you have never played it before. As I said, any difficulties down below, and if you enjoyed this tutorial, let me know down below as well in the comments section. Until next time, have an enjoyable time playing Digimon World 1 on PlayStation 1, and you can stay explosive. Have fun!